Okay, so I guess this is part two of that same um, discourse on that. So to cross-reference that, um, let's see here. In a direct parallel to the etheric framework of Tesla and Dollar, both models propose a non-material layer of reality that is a primary source of form and function. Okay, so a direct cross-reference of these two seemingly disparate paradigms reveal a profound conceptual alignment. While Tesla and Dollar spoke in the language of ether, and Szent-Györgyi and Becker spoke in the language of bioelectrics and electrons, all four figures share a common field based ontology of energy and life. To illustrate this, the following table provides a conceptual translation of their models against the mainstream scientific view. All right, let's see here. That goes into all that. Um, uh, so basically, they just list different. Let's say like if we're dealing with energy. Okay, in the mainstream model, electromagnetic waves, force carrying particles. The Tesla perspective, longitudinal waves, etheric potentials. The mainstream biology, chemical bonds, molecular diffusion. In the Szent-Györgyi bioelectric model, electronic conduction, direct current gradients. So it shows the difference in the language, but we'll get into that as we get into it, right? Okay, so the Tesla Dollard view of cellular semiconductors. Okay, the central conflict of the query, how to reconcile a framework that rejects the electron with one that relies on it, can be addressed by translating the term electron into the language of Tesla's etheric reality. From a Tesla dollar perspective, Szent-Györgyi's delocalized electron. Remember earlier he was talking about the delocalized electron. It would not be a discrete particle, but rather a localized etheric strain. Remember he said a dielectric um, or electrostatic um, space modality of the ether would be strain, the ether under strain or stress, or pressure disturbance. The conducting band within a protein molecule, which Szent-Györgyi proposed as a pathway for rapid signaling, would be the structural conduit through which the longitudinal etheric pressure propagates. So kind of let's slow that down a little bit. Okay, so um okay, the conducting band within the protein molecule where the electron is sent to, which Szent-Györgyi proposed is a pathway for rapid signaling, um, would be structural conduit through which the longitudinal etheric pressure. So instead of an electron, he's saying it will be in the language of Tesla, it will be a longitudinal etheric pressure. So he's replacing. So the AI is replacing the term electron with certain other terminologies that fit more with Tesla's framework on this hypothetical thing we're doing. Okay, this is this hypothetical thought experiment, I guess you could say. This is where Eric Dollar's distinction between dielectricity and magnetism become highly relevant. The protein semiconductor can be seen as a living dielectric, almost like a living battery, so to speak. You see what I mean? The state of the protein, its molecular tension or strain would determine its electrical properties and its ability to conduct. So basically the protein would be like a battery or an electric or um a living battery. Now I'm trying to kind of like scale it down even further than the AI got it. Like a living battery, the state of the protein, its molecular tension or strain would determine its electrical properties and its ability to conduct. Okay, so the condition of the battery would, which would be the protein, would determine its ability to conduct electricity. The process that we call electron transfer is simply the momentary, peep this, momentary localized collapse and reconstruction of this etheric tension, right? No electron, a etheric tension, um, a collapse and reconstruction of the etheric tension, a compression event within the ether rather than a particle physically moving from one atom to another. So it's a compression or a perturbation or a disturbance in the ether rather than a um, electron particle BB moving from one protein to another. The proteins are like batteries and they're sending and receiving pressures or operating off of some sort of resonant frequency between one another. It kind of gives a different perspective of the body going into this. This translation leads to a powerful conceptual expansion. The cell is not just a circuit, but a micro etheric resonator, right? Huh. It is a biological structure designed to receive and process etheric information and energy. A biological structure designed to receive and process etheric information and energy. From this vantage point, the biological processes within the cell, from energy production in mitochondria to healing response, are not merely a cascade of biological reactions. Instead, they are a complex, resonant phenomena. So it's not just a bunch of chemicals just doing their thing or whatever the case may be. It's a whole symphony going on, a resonant frequencies going on. You see what I'm saying? Similar to how we made the larger macro correlation to your life, a symphony of frequencies going on. Okay, so the electron transport chain in the mitochondria, transport chain, I think I got that. Hold on. Hold on. Wait a minute. Wait a minute. I have to look it up again. I thought I had y'all covered. I thought I had the electron transport chain hooked up for y'all. One second. Thought I had that hooked up for y'all, but we'll get into it. Okay, so let's see here. Okay. This translation leads to a powerful conceptual expansion. The cell is not just a circle. Okay, we got into that. Okay, so the electron transport chain of mitochondria would be viewed as a series of cascading etheric pressure changes, with each step releasing a burst of energy to be captured by the system. With each step releasing a burst of etheric energy to be captured by the system. This perspective suggests that a cell's health and function are not solely dependent on its chemical composition, but are critically tied to its ability to maintain a coherent, resonant relationship with its electrical or etheric environment. Right? So, and throughout a lot of our stuff, we've been talking the environment continues to reign supreme. Um, so disease, particularly in the case of Szent-Györgyi, late stage theories of cancer could be interpreted as a breakdown in this resonant coherence. So remember when we talk about geobiology, we were talking about Ernest Hartman. He was talking about how important the environment is. You see what I'm saying? So there's a resonant coherence with the earth or the environment in general. A loss of this structured superconducting matrix that enables life to function at an electronic level. Okay. All right. So now we're going to get into de-differentiation. And I do got y'all covered on that. De-differentiation is a process where mature, specialized cells revert to a more primitive embryonic state. This reversal is not random, but is triggered by bioelectric signals, making it a critical step in the natural regeneration observed in some species. It's triggered by electrical signals, it's essential for regeneration, observable evidence from amphibians. That's some of the experiments were done on mammalian limitations and stimulation. You got to we have to have this artificially stimulated in us, being mammals. Let me see here. It's therapeutic applications, but just kind of touching on that. So let's go back. So that's de-differentiation. It's when the cell goes back to a primitive state, it's no longer specialized. It's no longer a liver cell anymore. It goes back into a state almost stem cell like blastoma. That was the word for it used in previous video, what have you. That's the word used for it in the literature. It goes back into a primitive state where it has the potential to potentially do anything or what have you, or either be a malignant cancer cell or what have you. That's how they describing cancer in some of the research. Again, I'm not a doctor, so this is how it's worded. Um, let's see. To define de-differentiation in terms of Tesla's ether theory, one must first understand its conventional biological meaning. Differentiation is a process by which a specialized cell, one with a defined structure and function, loses its specific features and reverts to a less specialized, more primitive state. Robert Becker's work shows that this process is triggered by a negative electrical current at a wound site, suggesting an electrical mechanism for cellular reprogramming. Okay, from a Tesla etheric perspective, a specialized differentiated cell is a highly organized, complex, and stable vortex of etheric tension. Okay, let's go. A specialized cell, like a liver cell, differentiated cell is a highly organized, complex, and stable vortex of etheric tension. So he's saying that a cell, from this perspective, a, a cell, hypothetically, a cell is a vortex of etheric tension. Okay, its unique form and function are not just determined by its genetic expression, but by a specific and stable configuration of strained ether. When we say ether under stress and strain, that's the electrostatic state, that's the dielectric state, almost like a battery, so to speak, that holds its cellular identity in place. This stable state maintains the cell's homeostasis and prevents it from returning to an undifferentiated condition. So in this would imply that cells are like batteries as well, just like proteins are like batteries and everything like that. Interesting correlation. Those is just some of the nuances that we getting from you filtering it through these different frameworks. So the process of different de-differentiation that is initiated by Becker's current of injury, we talked about the current of injury earlier, which in this framework is a specific type of longitudinal etheric pressure. The current of injury that initiates the healing process or what have you is a longitudinal etheric pressure. In previous videos, we talked about longitudinal waves according to Tesla, things that are outside of the electromagnetic spectrum. We pulled up the circle of space, matter, and time, went over that. So go back to the previous videos and the whole ether series. I know it's getting kind of wordy and kind of nerdy, but if you follow along with some of this stuff, it's some interesting correlations that are made. Okay, so this pressure wave, when applied to a damaged cell, acts as an anti-force or releasing agent. Okay, like those two chemicals we talked about in the previous video. Okay, it causes the highly organized strain etheric vortices, like a battery, of the specialized cell to unravel or collapse. The cell literally loses its unique energetic form or strain, reverting to a more basic fluid etheric state, like what we talked about, the primitive kind of state or whatever case may be. Where it could potentially become a cancer. This state is less defined, less organized, and possesses a higher potency because it has lost the complex informational structure. Remember how we were talking about these um, uh, certain frequencies or the energetic blueprint or whatever. There's an energetic blueprint behind matter or what have you that defines its specialization. The final step, redifferentiation, would be the imposition of a new specific etheric strain, battery, or vortex upon the dedifferentiated tissue. This is directed by a master formative field or of the organism, which guides the newly plastic cells to reform into new specialized structure. Okay, this is not a simple metaphor, but a fundamental ontological claim. Dedifferentiation is seen not just as a change in genetic expression, but as the physical unwinding of a complex etheric structure, a battery, that defines the cell's very existence. This explains why the precise current strength uh, discovered by Becker was so important for regeneration, because he applied electric fields to regeneration of human tissue. It has to be the exact pressure or frequency required to release cellular etheric tension, right? So to dissolve the battery um, in its current form or what have you, without destroying the underlying biological scaffold. This perspective suggests that the future of regenerative medicine may not lie in complex genetic manipulation, but in precise application of tailored electrical fields that can be used to reprogram or reset cellular structure um, uh, from its fundamental foundation. Okay, so that. That was an interesting piece right there because that kind of like reframed, you know, you have in one framework, you know, proteins are and mitochondria are viewed as semiconductors. And from this framework, the way he describes what they do and everything like that, you might as well say they're you know you might as well just call them batteries or what have you. You can kind of interchange that based on there's no electron or whatever the case may be. So the idea of them transferring electrons kind of goes out the window or what have you, and it really makes them more clearly into capacitors or batteries or whatever that exchange charge and everything like that. So that's actually quite interesting. But yeah, that's what I had on that one. Just wanted to kind of make that correlation. I think that's an interesting add-on. Filtering cellular biology or cellular regeneration um, through etheric physics. So just as a a interesting thought experiment. You see what I'm saying? But that kind of adds to our whole conversation about the ether, adds to our whole conversation about light and energy, and this whole transition from the biochemical model of medicine to the more electrical model. So appreciate you for checking me out, bearing with me through this wordy and nerdy edition. You know what I'm saying? True masterpiece theater. You feel me? But now, I appreciate y'all all the love and support, man. If you like what you've been hearing, man, like and subscribe. We will get more back to the more simplistic psychoanalytical information or whatever. But this is the others to self portion. I kind of wanted to flesh this one out or whatever. So we got some solid playlists to stand on. You feel me? So peace and blessings.